qualified occupational therapist about to embark on her career in the field of mental health. She has an interest in occupational science and representation of socially marginalised groups. And today she's going to talk to us about what are the experiences of transgender people who are transitioning in the workplace, and how can this inform occupational therapy practice within vocational rehab? Over to you, Nina.
Thank you. So, as she said, I'm Nina Phoenix. I'm a Band 5 occupational therapist. I'm currently working in Kenton Medway Partnership Trust in an inpatient acute ward. I conducted this critical review as part of my dissertation as finishing uni. And I found it very interesting to do it myself, and I learned a lot from doing the process, which is why I wanted to share it with you today. So to begin, I'll begin the presentation by giving you an overview of what individuals are required to do to change their gender identity. Basically what happens is that they first have to seek help from one of 8 gender identity clinics within the UK, and then gain a diagnosis of having gender dysphoria. According to the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, gender dysphoria refers to a distress or discomfort caused by a discrepancy between a person's gender identity and their sex at birth. And above is a table showing that potential journey. After 3 months of living in their desired gender, they are then offered hormone treatment. And after a minimum of 1 to 2 years, sometimes a maximum of 3, they also have to work or be in some sort of occupational engagement to be able to sort of demonstrate that they are truly committed to their transition, which I felt was quite a lot to ask people to do. Once they've completed this, they can then apply for a gender recognition certificate, which affords them all of the legal rights and protections necessary for them to live out their lives in their desired gender. So, why is this relevant to us? Well, in 2010, there were 12,500 transgender individuals known to services. Therefore, this figure can be assumed to be much larger due to population growth and those not in contact with services. In 2011, the Home Office conducted also an online transgender survey, which was aimed at identifying key issues that transgender individuals are facing. And the responses indicated that the area of employment was a main concern for all of them, with over a third of respondents selecting it as their main priority. And many identified that they had experienced challenges gaining and retaining employment, and with many identifying it as the most challenging aspect of their lives. So I'd just like you to keep in mind this 2 years that they have to do to be able to get this gender recognition certificate. So, relevance to occupational therapy. Within the 8 gender identity clinics in the UK, I found that numerous reference to meaningful activity and occupational activity and occupational areas of life, and the importance of maintaining this during the 2-year real life experience, which is the real life experience is the term that they use within the gender identity clinics. However, only one of these clinics has an occupational therapist, which is the Leeds and York Partnership, which is the one that I've put in the box. So, although that they put the emphasis on this, there's only one OT working in this area. I actually spoke to them when I was doing the critical review, and they said that their role wasn't really surrounded around vocational rehabilitation, it was more of a role of assessment. So occupational therapy can have a unique role in appreciating this dynamic gender shift by understanding the importance of changing occupations assigned to previous gender roles, the motivation that drives certain gender stereotypical occupations, and adapting new ways of participating within the work environment to certain new gender role. To analyse the workplace experience of trans people, I carried out a critical review of available literature to analyse occupational experiences of transgender individuals in the workplace. So to conduct my critical review, I set a certain amount of inclusion and exclusion criteria. I won't bore you with too many details, but if you do want to know, I'm happy to share it with you after. The search took several months, and before I began to see the same key articles being repeated. I also had to get in contact with quite a few authors, because there was a lot of grey matter that hadn't yet been published, and I had to try and get hold of that as well and then compare that with what I had. But I found it was quite difficult to actually get hold of anything that was really what I wanted for the purpose of this critical review. In total, I was left with 18 potential articles, and then they were analysed for repetitive results and critiqued, and then I had 9 articles that remained for the purpose of the study. There were 2 articles from the UK, there was 1 from Thailand, 1 from Canada, and 5 from the United States. 3 of these are key studies. They were referenced numerous times in other articles, and they were deemed to be significant within this field of research. 7 of the articles were qualitative, 1 was quantitative, and 1 was critical review. The 9 articles then underwent a process of coding, and these 5 themes emerged, and I'm now going to discuss each theme separately. So, firstly, looking at disclosure in the workplace. Within the Canadian study by Began et al., qualitative interviews revealed that preparation for disclosure in the workplace became a full-time occupation for the majority of the participants. A common theme within 5 of the studies was that participants would amass a large amount of information on the topic and then present themselves to senior staff members or human resources, who would then have a very limited idea of how to deal with the situation. To go along with this as well, in support of that, the UK study by Barclay and Scott, they actually interviewed the employers, and they said that they felt out of their depth, that they lacked knowledge, and that they were very isolated when they were presented with these employees who had come to this with this situation. Even when they were willing to be supportive, they were then required to complete internet searches to try and locate policy guidance, as there was nothing readily available for them within local policies. Another common issue found within these studies that with individuals living a double life, so they would live in their chosen gender at home, but they would revert back to their assigned gender when they were at work. And in terms of their identity, many found this a very difficult process, causing heightened anxiety, and some were so overwhelmed by hiding their gender identity at work that they attempted suicide. Within the UK qualitative study by Hines, some participants even revealed that the fear of job loss or discrimination was so great that they would wait until they'd reached retirement age before revealing their gender in all aspects of their lives. And interestingly, however, those working in highly gender stereotyped workplaces such as engineering, manual labour, trades, or conversely beauticians, hairdressers and things like this, they found the transition very, very difficult. However, those working in gender-neutral environments found transition to be much easier, with support from colleagues and managers alike, which highlights how the work environment can predetermine the likelihood of a successful transition. Moving on to the next theme. In studies conducted by Budgetero and Schilt, they discovered how participation in self-care activities such as dressing became a key issue in the lives of participants. Choosing how to present themselves to colleagues was a tool to inform others of their gender identity, seeking acceptance from others and attempting to fit in. However, in some professions, it was identified that a dress code was needed to be adhered to, and sometimes this prevented participants from pursuing chosen careers. For example, in one of the studies, I found that there was somebody who didn't follow their career goals until their transition because they wanted to go to law school, but wearing a shirt and a blouse and a skirt was so far removed from their gender identity, they waited until their transition to go to law school. And it still actually has that in the guidance for law school, that if you are female, this is what you have to wear. Another main issue within the studies was bathroom use. Many employers did not recognise change in gender until surgery had been performed, which, as I said before, people have to wait 2 years working before they're even considered for surgery. So for a period of 2 years, participants were forced to use a bathroom for a gender that either they did not associate with, or more commonly, they had to use the disabled toilet instead. In many cases, neither male nor female colleagues wanted the person using their facilities, making the person feel unwelcome in their destination gender. However, in one of the studies conducted by Shilton Connell, the participants were made to feel welcomed in these gender spaces, effectively being shown how to do gender correctly. For example, being taken shopping, being shown how to apply makeup, included in stereotypical activities such as discussing children, gossiping about men. And Shilton Connell examines how this reinforces the gender binary in a female versus male enactment. You can't, if you want to be a woman, we'll show you how to do it, or if you want to be a man, we'll show you how to do it properly. In all cases, the reaction of colleagues in these gendered spaces impacted on self-esteem, with acceptance increasing self-esteem and exclusion reducing it. In all 9 articles, acceptance of colleagues at work affected self-esteem. The next theme was personal discrimination. Every article in this study found personal discrimination in the workplace to be a finding within participants' lives. Some were fired, others were ostracised, and at this point in their transition, they were not afforded any legal protection for having a gender recognition certificate. Therefore, they felt powerless to sue companies for this behaviour. Additionally, the cost of making a claim when you've just been made unemployed also has an impact on their decision to keep quiet. However, what was interesting is the links this has to feminist ideas, with male to female transitions experiencing more workplace discrimination, whereas female to male transitions experienced opportunity within their careers and felt the effects of the male privilege. The quote above was taken from one of the studies. Let me just take a moment to read that. So this demonstrates, it is quite funny, isn't it? I was quite shocked when I found that. So this demonstrates how the person was discriminated against just on their gender and not on the skills and attributes that they had to do their job. In cases where job loss led to, in some cases, job loss led to sex work, and I explored a study that was conducted in Thailand. This discussed how transgender individuals were excluded from normal jobs, but they felt welcomed into the sex and entertainment industry. Participants felt this kind of work offered them the ability to feel accepted and offered a daily opportunity to assert female gender through their activities if it was a male to female transition. Interestingly, also due to job loss and abuse in the UK, transgender individuals often go into sex work as a last resort, and then they become attracted by money and just kind of become engrossed in that life. In the United States, transgender individuals often go into sex work as their employers don't offer them healthcare insurance needed for their surgery costs. So literally for financial reasons they will do that. The next thing, looking at barriers and enablers of maintaining the same job. Within 3 of the articles, they discussed the benefits of maintaining the same job. Many found that continuing with the same job afforded them stability within their lives, allowing normal routines to continue. Additionally, some had good friends at work who they could trust to support them, who they may have already revealed their transgender identity to prior to coming out at work. And there was also the added bonus of having financial stability. However, those who chose to quit work or were fired needed to seek new employment in their new gender identity. When seeking new employment, almost all individuals changed their name to match their desired gender. However, unlike a normal name change, they wish to conceal their previous name as they will identify them as being transgender. This causes many complications as they must attempt to seek new employment as individuals with no previous work experiences or references from previous work. Additionally, qualifications gained under the old name will now be worthless. If they were able to get the gender recognition certificate, all of these issues are kind of sorted out for them, but because they're stuck in this 2-year period where they have to work before they can get the surgery and then get the gender recognition certificate, they're helpless really in this situation unless they're able to go to a new employer who is quite understanding and who can take everything on board. So essentially what we're saying is they could be a 40-year-old with no qualifications, no work experience, no references, and then seeking a new employment. It was also a common theme within all the studies that they found the legal aspects of the transition very difficult, and many of them didn't actually gain the gender recognition certificate providing them with protection. Lastly, looking at gendered occupations, Began et al. Discusses how daily occupation cell participants were influenced by their desire to establish a social identity in their destination gender, establishing how they want to see themselves and informing others on how they wish to be seen. This included seeking out stereotypical gendered occupations to assert their identity, such as adapting self-care routines to meet socially accepted expectations of their desired gender,